weekly news here in Israel according to our ability and opinions, if you're interested in listening. So, with your permission, I'd like to start by reading one of the Tehillim, which are translated as Psalms. Really, Tehillah means praise. It's really be called the Book of Praises. And each of these praises, Psalms, is also like a prayer. When we recite them, it's like a prayer. And we're praying for all our brethren, all the civilians that are in captivity, all our soldiers who are in the front lines, and we're praying for them all. I'm going to read Psalm Praise 6 from the Book of Psalms, with your permission. Lam natseach beneginos al ashminid mizmor leDavid. Lord, do not rebuke me with your anger, nor chastise me with your rage. Be gracious unto me, Lord, for I am desolate. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are terrified. My soul too is utterly terrified. And you, Lord, how long? Return, Lord, free my soul. Deliver me for the sake of your loving kindness. For in death there is no mention of you. In the lower world, who will thank you? I am worn out with my sighing. Every night I cause my bed to float. With my tears I melt my couch. My eye is dim from anger. It has aged because of my tormentors. Depart from me, all you evildoers, for the Lord has heard the voice of my weeping. The Lord has heard my supplication. The Lord will also accept my prayer. Ashamed and utterly terrified will all my foes be. They will return they will return around and be instantly ashamed. Earlier this week, my dear wife and I, Shoshana, we went a little further north to an interesting area known as Kiryat Tivon and Kiryat Amal, two neighborhood cities right next to each other. They're behind Haifa is a good way to describe them. They're in a line with Haifa, behind the Carmel mountain range, nature reserve there. You can see from there, it's right next to it. Very pretty place from which you can see Haifa Bay in the distance. Very nice neighborhoods. We walked around there. And we're on our way back in the intersection to get the bus. So there was a number of demonstrators from the area, I assume. And what were they demonstrating? They were demonstrating that the hostages should be brought back soon. They held signs, they're holding up signs and with messages and everything, and they were standing there at the various intersections, at the various corners. So I was thinking to myself, they're demonstrating that to bring the hostages home. Like, is that a cause that anyone disagrees with? It's like saying demonstrating for motherhood or demonstrating for sunshine. I don't think you'll find many people who would be against that cause. So I was thinking to myself, basically, what they're demonstrating for, it's not so much that they're demonstrating, but it's fulfilling perhaps a need for them. It's like for them, coming out there with the signs is like a prayer. It's a way of prayer. It's a way of group prayer. And that I can understand, and that is important. It's important to express our hurt and our feelings at this time, and to turn that into prayer somehow. In fact, also this week we spoke to one of our friends in Jerusalem, and she's an artist, and I asked her, how are you doing, how are your projects coming? She said, since the war started, I really haven't been very productive at all. It's been very hard for me to paint. And on Saturday night, there was a gathering of the families of the hostages, and they're going to have a demonstration. I went to go, and then I got to where I was supposed to be, and they said, oh, now they got a meeting with the government, and they're going there, so she drove over there, she parked there. In the end, she didn't really catch up to the group. Evidently, they were meeting with the government or something. But she said when she was walking back to her car, she just started crying, and she realized how much she was identifying with their pain, and she was crying the whole way. And she said that was on Saturday night. Now this week, she's been able to work a little more. By the way, I forgot to say at the beginning, this is the week of the Parsha of Vayetze in the book of Genesis, and today's date is the 10th of the Hebrew month of Kislev, which is the month when Hanukkah comes, another 15 days. It should come upon us for good. And today is the 23rd of the secular Gregorian month of November, 5784, here in the land of Israel, and I assume elsewhere. So she said this week she's been better able to concentrate. She's been able to get some work done. And I think that's a good indication that it is important to recognize the pain we're all going through, the pain of what's happened to our brothers and sisters, the pain of the 300 soldiers who have been killed and their families, the pain of the hundreds of civilians who were killed and their families, the pain of the hostages and their families. It's a lot of pain, and we have to recognize that we're going through it and not pretend or try to deny it. And from above, they should help us to do that. I'd like to touch very briefly upon an issue which we see bantered around also these days in Israel. When I go around, I see various signs and stickers, blaming people, blaming the Prime Minister. Of course, there was a lot of stickers blaming the Prime Minister for things before this war, so it's not like a giant innovation, but I think it's important for us to recognize that what happened is not any one person's fault, of course. It's something we all have to take an account for, give an account for. It's something we as a nation have to think about why it happened, why we were so naive to let this monster grow in Gaza for all these years. That's a long question going back decades, over 3 decades really, if not more. I mean, just the 3 decades that I've been in Israel, I'd say I can see this thing evolving, and that's something we all have to together take stock for. I would like to say that in general we can maybe see some political lessons from this. That is to say, in the way these decisions are made in our governments, we would do better, in my opinion, to elect people to represent us not by party, but as individuals from individual regions, like we do in America. Why do I say that? Particularly for a number of reasons. One, if a politician knows that he has to be elected by a certain group of people from a certain place, so he's going to care about what they want. Particularly going to care, not just in general care, but particularly he's going to care and make a point of it. Make a point to work for those things. Example, Benny Gantz is a former army officer. When he was in the Knesset, there may have been a lot of issues he in general liked, but what he worked for the most to make sure happen was increasing the pensions of retired army officers. That's not surprising, that's not bad, but everyone needs their representative. And you need your representative from your place to represent your interests. The people around Gaza and in Gush Katif, which were the communities in the Gaza area before they were evacuated by Israel in 2005, the communities next to Gaza, like Sderot and Netivot, which suffered greatly in this war and suffered in the past for years and years from all types of rockets and incendiary objects being shot into their cities and fields. They need people in the Knesset that represent just them. Okay? Because it was really unacceptable. This is part of our repentance we have to do for the whole thing. It was unacceptable all these years when these rockets were coming, when their fields were being set ablaze by incendiary balloons. That's unacceptable. The fact that we did not respond strongly to that all the years was what caused the lack of deterrence. And if they had representatives in the Knesset, in the parliament, representing their areas, and refused to vote for anything else until this stuff was dealt with properly, then maybe it wouldn't have been allowed to go on for so long. As if to say, well, if these poorer towns are suffering a few rockets, well, nish gefällt. What can you do about it? As we say in Yiddish. Not that I know Yiddish, but I know that expression. So that's one point. Another point is it's important to us as Jews in general, both in Israel and around the world, with so much Jewish hatred being shown these days. It's important to us to remember that Jew hatred is a hatred, and it is a mental illness, and it does not have to do with what we do or do not do. Jews serve as a symbol for the person who is afflicted with Jew hatred. They serve as a symbol for all the things they hate about themselves, that they're all their anxieties and problems in life. It doesn't mean that Jews did anything bad, that someone hates them. And that's very important to remember, and I think it's unfortunately something we have to remind ourselves and our loved ones in our communities, that Jew hatred does not mean that Jews did anything wrong. On the contrary, it simply means that there's a lot of ill people in the world, and we have to recognize that fact and not try to deceive ourselves.